Hi everyone, and welcome to Ask the Yoga Psychologist. This is our second episode with Dr. Stephanie Minchin as part of our MoreMind program. And today we'll be discussing how you can stop self-sabotaging, which seems to be a big a big focus at the moment for a lot of people. So Steph, firstly, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Wonderful. Hi, lovely. Thank you. Hi, and thank you for everyone that's tuned in to listen. Looking forward to sharing with you.
So Steph is our resident psychologist, the yoga psychologist. And Steph, would you like to just share a little bit about your work before we get started, just so anyone who hasn't had the pleasure of meeting or connecting with you yet knows who you are?
Wonderful. Thank you. I suppose people may have met me in various ways. It could be through MoreYoga teaching on the yoga mat. It could be at conferences doing talks, or may even have been in the therapy room, or if I'm completely new to you, hello, hi. So my background firstly was in clinical psychology, and still is very much practicing. I've been working in mental health services for over 10 years, and I currently work in East London NHS with children, young people and families in mental health. And I suppose in my own journey through understanding mental health, at the point when I probably needed therapy, I turned to yoga instead, and that was very much an unconscious move. And then I noticed that the more I was doing yoga, the more grounded and less anxious I was becoming, more accepting of myself and who I am, and was noticing the healing powers of yoga in many, many different ways. And then I had the pleasure of meeting Heather Mason, who runs the Minded Institute and does the yoga therapy training. And I suppose that was my next calling. So that's where I've landed, that's where I've ended up. And I very much sort of integrate and juggle the three different disciplines between clinical psychology, yoga teaching and yoga therapy.
Thank you, Steph. Amazing. So, I mean, what would your advice be? I'm sure this is a huge topic that we could discuss for hours, but how would you advise our listeners today on how they can stop self-sabotaging at the moment? I guess in the current climate we're in, where a lot has changed for many of us this year due to so many things. How can we stop self-sabotaging?
Oh my goodness, it's such a broad topic, because that means a variety of different things for different people. And let's all acknowledge we're all human. We all have those vices, we all have negative patterns, we all have those pitfalls. There's those things in life that are there to tempt us, trip us up, like that happens, like that happens to all of us, hands up. You're not, if someone is in a place of feeling that they're the biggest and worst self-sabotager in the world, like we've all got it. So it absolutely does happen. I think before we can consider kind of like tools and techniques, it's actually about each person bringing awareness to what it is that's happening. And it's about recognizing what's playing out. It's about questioning then, why is it playing out? So firstly, when we start to notice the thoughts that we're having, like the effort moments, I'm just going to do it anyway, the ones that are quite punishing, like I know I'm going to make it worse myself tomorrow, but caution to the wind, chuck it out the window, I'm done, I'm gone. It's about noticing, sorry,
that extra glass of wine, you know that you don't need it, but you kind of think, oh, who cares about tomorrow?
Absolutely, and I'll share a personal story about that later on. But I know Liz and the people that have been to our workshop together, that's something that we quite often talk about. Like, actually, is it a glass of wine at the end of a long working week on a Friday, which is your soothing, your reward, or is it actually there's no moderation and it's rolling and it's gone? It's very, very easily done. I think alcohol in society is a big it's a big temptress for self-sabotaging, isn't it? Because you don't make such informed decisions and you're disinhibited. But in terms of the patterns, it's also about acknowledging what's playing out when self-sabotage is around. So it's almost like self-sabotage is this I keep saying temptress, but this kind of like really strong force that arrives at your front door that kind of says, oh, I'm here to play, you know, do you want to come out and play with me? And
Yeah.
it's really hard to refuse that invitation when, you know, you've been stuck indoors, you've been at your MacBook all day working away, and it's like, well, self-sabotage looks fun. I want some of you.
It's almost
And
a distraction, right? It's like the triggers that allow you to become distracted, like whether it be distracting yourself through things like drinking, or that take your focus away from whatever it is that you might be focusing on, or whether it's different kind of distractions.
yeah, exactly. And it's those behavior patterns that we fall into, the things that we end up doing that then create that vicious cycle. Because when the effort thoughts are around, or the sense of, oh, I don't care, or in our thoughts we might end up bargaining with ourselves, deprioritizing our values in order to validate more what the self-sabotage is tempting. And that's quite dangerous, because when we fall into those thinking traps, then the behaviors become quite explosive. And then that's when we get sort of stuck in that pattern of that vicious cycle, which is then, you know, like, oh, here I am again. Oh, I've seen this before. Oh, one last time. And it's really, really difficult to try and break that cycle once it's so solid, because it's what we know.
That's such a good example. One last time. I'm a really terrible one for saying, oh, on Monday, I'll start that again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was reflecting earlier about this, actually, when I was thinking about self-sabotage, because sometimes self-sabotage is there in our daily life in really obvious ways that aren't that visible. So this idea of, oh, I'll start on Monday, whether that's, you know, eating and about a diet, whether that's about drinking and not being hungover, but actually other things that are less visible are like our relationship with work. You know, I can really hold my hands up for this. Where is rest? Where is rest in my life? And particularly in my 20s, which is not anymore, you might be surprised to know. I would be just working solid. And then in order to have a lazy Sunday, like that, you know, the Sunday of no responsibility, the Sunday of not turning on the computer, the Sunday of not doing emails, I would completely overdrink on Saturday night, not get much sleep. And that was purely self-sabotage in order to validate having a rest.
Yes. Yeah, that validation. It's giving yourself permission to rest. I think there's a quote somewhere that I really love that resonates a lot with this, that says, in society now we wear exhaustion like a badge of honor.
Absolutely. And it's we myself included are very validated through work. And actually it's almost like when that drive is so big, it's like rest is shameful in some way, like we're not allowed to stop. Or if you've stopped and you've rested, you're not doing work, or you're not doing a good job. It's like, what a gift can you give to your nervous system to slow down and be still and stop? So self-sabotage patterns like that, you know, working through your lunch break, or not coming home on time, or you know, a lot of that goes back to boundaries. So using the example of choosing to you know, blow out on Saturday night to rest on a Sunday, actually if I'd put boundaries in and looked after myself to put rest, scheduled me time, scheduled no screen, that wouldn't need to happen, and it would be a much more fruitful rest. So can really encourage people to think about what is self-sabotage for you, in relationship to, you know, work, your daily life, your daily routines, relationships in general. Oh my goodness, how often do we repeat patterns?
Yeah, definitely. Something else that came up for me when I was thinking about this idea of self-sabotage was imposter syndrome, that I think is a big thing that a lot of people allow to kind of almost stand in their way, so you can self-sabotage yourself from kind of moving forwards with something, or maybe stepping into a new role or whatever it is when we're talking about work, new opportunity, or whatever that is, to actually say, oh yeah, but I'm not that person, I'm not able to do that, I'm not capable of doing that, and actually kind of talking yourself out of it. I always say to myself when I've wanted for years to get into running, and I always say I'm not a runner though, like I'm not a runner, I'm a yogi, whereas actually I've sabotaged myself already before I've even put my running trainers on and stepped out the door.
And actually what I'm hearing from that is about identity as well. So if I bargain with myself and create my identity as a yogi, then I'm not that, I'm not a runner. And identity often goes back to of course our view of ourself, and that links in so much with when you said about imposter syndrome, the sense of self-esteem and sense of worth. And self-sabotage patterns will often arrive when we believe that we are not deserving of something. I'm not good enough for, or I'm not worthy of. And that can be imposter syndrome, like with work, like I've got I think I don't deserve that promotion, so you know what, I'll never get that job, so I won't go for the interview anyway. Or in relationships, our sense of worth in comparison to the other, this is possibly when toxicity arises, but when there's a power imbalance and the other person's on a pedestal and we're not being treated as we deserve, it's actually that to keep being in that relationship is continuing to sabotage yourself. It's like continuing that cycle of pain and hurt.
Are there any things that you would kind of suggest for people to stop that cycle? Any kind of daily thing? I guess at the moment everything does feel so out of the ordinary for so many of us in lots of different ways. Are there things that you could suggest for people to do each day as maybe part of a daily ritual or a routine to maybe stop those cycles when they're beginning? I know we spoke a bit about awareness, when people are becoming aware of these self-sabotaging cycles, what they can do to help kind of stop those things happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as we would all love that magic wand, it does require work and discipline, especially when a pattern and a cycle is so familiar, it's habitual. So, creating a different relationship with a different routine takes time until that new routine becomes habitual. But like you said, yes, it's about awareness. So mindfulness of thought, mindfulness of behavior. So trying to check in and become more noticing of when you're doing a particular action, what thoughts are around. And really questioning and reflecting why. Like, why is it I'm doing this? What is the purpose? What's the intention? To try and understand, what is that action serving? So actually, is that glass of wine serving like, yes, that's my lovely relaxation on a Friday night, but actually when it turns into the next bottle, the next bottle, the next bottle, what is it doing? So that's an example of how something's gone from soothing to them being destructive. And something that I've been holding in mind a lot recently, especially through facilitating the Cultivating Compassion course, is the idea of I want to be helpful, not harmful. So when we can hold in mind what is helping me rather than what's harming me, that will encourage us to make better decisions. And particularly when we can be more aligned with our values. So actually, okay, let's say one of my values is to be in good well-being, like physical well-being, and I want to go to the gym on Monday morning. So am I going to the gym on Monday morning because I'm motivated because of my physical health, or is it because I feel like I should, and I'm punishing myself? Where do my values lie? What's the motivation? Where is it coming from? And what's my intention? Because when we can be more guided by our value system, then we can be more aligned with doing things that are helpful for us in the long term. because it's like self-sabotage takes you away from the long term.
Mm.
Self-sabotage is like the immediate gratification, or sometimes it's about the numbing, like I'm feeling too much, I'm overwhelmed, I need to not feel.
Yeah.
So it's trying to hold in mind more of the what is it I'm doing, what are my thoughts, what are my behaviors, why is this happening, what is it I want in the longer term, how motivated am I to achieve that, and
Mm.
what can I do differently. So again, that comes back to action. What's the intention and what's the action? Because awareness is the first thing to notice and name.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is to do something different.
Amazing. So try and resist that kind of instant gratification. That's what came to mind there.
Yeah, exactly. I think Liz, as well, earlier you mentioned about like sometimes self-sabotage is a distraction in itself. And I wondered, in terms of like techniques of doing something differently, how people can distract themselves with a positive alternative.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point, actually. I think especially, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed this a lot more now. I'm working from home pretty much full time at the moment. The immediate distraction of things that are normally you come home and you relax in your home normally. That's normally where you come back
Yeah.
after work if you're used to going out to a workplace.
Yeah.
Your couch is there, your fridge is there, your bed
Yeah.
is there.
Yeah.
And actually those things that we align with our kind of relaxation, calm, soothing spaces are now available to us all the time. So there's not that boundary of like the workplace and the home space.
Yeah.
So I think having dedicated spaces where you work, so you don't end up working from your laptop on the couch all day in front of the TV, can be really healthy. Even just
Yeah.
shifting your energetic environment, I think, can be really powerful.
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
shift where you're working from.
Yeah. And I think that really goes back to sort of boundaries and routine. So in terms of tools and techniques, the more someone can maybe look at their daily schedule and say, right, these are the hours that I'm working, this is when I'll be, if it's at home, this is when I'll be at the laptop. Okay, what can I do instead of lying on the sofa all evening, overeating? What is it I would like to do, and what is it I can put in that time instead? Like, go and meet a friend for a coffee and a walk, get outside into nature. And there's it's what a CBT technique, but behavior scheduling, like actually looking at your routine, because the more we can create structure, the more we improve boundaries, and then the more we do something, the more likely we are to keep doing it.
Yeah. I used to do a really great practice when I was working with a CBT therapist, actually, and it was about putting in a color-coded system into your week. So looking ahead and saying, okay, I still do it now, and this is 5 years on. I look at my week and I have blue scheduled in for work, and then yellow I put in for health, purple for kind of socializing, and then anything else. You could have family, you can have your different elements of your life that make up your kind of balance wheel, I suppose. And I got into this habit of looking at the week ahead and saying, okay, there's no yellow, there's no self-care, there's no health, there's far too much blue for work. So, okay, where can I edit things out? Like, can I reclaim a lunch break and go for a walk? Can I add in a yoga class? Can I meet a friend? Exactly as you said, Steph. Can I do a breathing practice for 15 minutes just so I've done a little bit of, self-compassionate or self-care work in the day, in the week? And I think that could be a really great, if you're feeling frazzled and overwhelmed and you're self-sabotaging in that way, actually kind of taking power back over your schedule can be a really great practice to get into.
Absolutely, power back over your schedule. Exactly that. It's the agency. We sometimes, especially at the moment when we probably feel restricted, there's uncertain times, there's been so much unrest this year for so many reasons, that we can feel out of control. Yeah, actually, regardless of what's out of control beyond us, we can still make individual choices for us, and in our context. And I'm thinking, Liz, as you were talking about so Julia Cameron, the artist's way, and how one of her techniques is about booking yourself a date with yourself every week. It's non-negotiable. It's your time, and it's a time to do something without purpose. Like, the purpose is it's your time, and it's about finding those joy as well in that, especially in times when yeah, we it's been a bit of a bleak year for various reasons.
Yeah, definitely. I love that idea of of scheduling in a date with yourself.
Yeah. I was also just thinking more in the lines of sort of mental health, because self-sabotage, of course, can look like something more serious in terms of addiction patterns, substance misuse, alcohol dependency. And Gabor Mate is a really leading psychiatrist who works with a lot of trauma and sort of dependency and addictions. And I'm really struck by some of his work in which he, in terms of addictive patterns, he says it's not the addiction itself, it's not the substance itself. It's what the impact of it is healing. And what it's healing is actually trauma underneath. So quite often if we go to substances or alcohol misuse, then it's about numbing something. So my advice and recommendation is if someone who's listening to this is really, really struggling with self-sabotage in that way, to really reach out to either sort of like Alcohol's Anonymous, AA, any of the sort of dependency ones as well, like CA, there's lots of other ones. Go to your GP, start to look online, look for peer support groups, because you're not the only one out there. And that feels like, yeah, a really, really important thing to name, because actually it's not the addiction of the substance, it's more about the hurt of what you're having to heal. So if you're in that place, please go and look for support. And also the same with another self-sabotaging behavior can be physical self-harm. So some people might cut themselves or act out in different ways. And when that happens, it could be about having really overwhelmed feelings that there needs to be an emotional release for, or perhaps being in a place to feel numb, where actually hurting oneself is a way to feel. And again, if that's you, please go to your local GP or find your sort of local psychological or therapeutic service. That feels a really important encouragement to say, because if you're in a place where you are needing and wanting support, then that's our encouragement.
Definitely, and really important to ask for help, exactly as you said, Steph. If you're really struggling, ask for help at the moment. And I think it's so important to know that there's no shame in asking for help. So many of us are struggling with our mental health at the moment, with our physical health, with our well-being as a whole. It's so important now more than ever that we get support, that all of us get the support we need and ask for help when we need it, whether it's in a professional capacity, whether it's in peer support, whether it's in connecting in these ways online as we're doing right now. But yeah, please do get the help that you need, everybody. And Steph, thank you so much for sharing all those wonderful insights today.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. I can't believe that this is part of our role and our job, that we just get to have conversations like this together and share it with others. It's I think a passion of both of ours, and I really, really appreciate people listening, and looking forward to sharing more. For sure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Steph. And these sessions are available each month at the moment. This is a new project that we're working on, and we will also be releasing a blog shortly to follow up with just some easily digestible takeaway points from this wonderful discussion with Steph today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will look forward to seeing you next time, everybody. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and a wonderful rest of the month. Who knows? Where are we now? It's in October. Yeah, who knows what day it is, but wonderful rest of the month as well.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.